Every year, tourists flock to snap photos of natural wonders like Arizona's Grand Canyon. But this next amazing marvel is so remote and potentially dangerous that it has very rarely been photographed, much less visited. And it's been confounding scientists for years. It's summer 2006 in the Irkutsk region of Russia. Geologists Sergei Yazov and Dmitry Sinyanov have set out to document their explorations of a remote site that's baffled scientists to this day. In their aerial footage, we can see a rock formation protruding from the surrounding green forest. The grayish rock looks otherworldly, completely separate from its surroundings. It rises 130 feet in the air with a diameter of 520 feet. From above, it almost looks like a giant crater. However, another spherical shape rests inside, like a volcano with a ball stuck in the center. Journalist Amy Teitel says the infamous site is known as the Patomskiy crater.
It sort of looks like a crater, but there's this bolus-looking thing in the middle. It's unclear how it formed or what exactly it is, and because it's in a remote location in Siberia, it's incredibly hard to study.
Teitel says the site was first studied by Russian scientists in 1949 when the local Yakut people warned a young geologist about it.
The local people in the area are the Yakut people, and they've been aware of this formation for a long time. It's known as the Fire Eagle's Nest or the Devil Place. The locals know to avoid this place at all costs, and they say that anyone who gets too close to it is immediately overcome with a sense of dread. One expedition was forced to stop when its leader died of a sudden heart attack just 3 miles from the crater.
In 2010, the Patomskiy Crater Conference was held in St. Petersburg, Russia, where scientists gathered to discuss its origin. Their results? Inconclusive. But we have our own team of experts, so let's see what they can unearth. NASA geologist Dr. Bob Anderson considers one theory that's gained some traction, that the crater could have been created by 2 consecutive meteorites.
We've seen where impacts have hit this area, especially Siberia. My problem with the impact idea is that you don't see an ejecta blanket.
Ejecta blanket is the blanket of debris surrounding an impact crater. There is typically a star-shaped distribution of ejecta around the crater rim because the debris is ejected up and then out. There's no ejecta blanket here, so Anderson is able to rule out meteorites. Then another theory. Could this be a volcano?
The problem is that this is in a limestone sedimentary rock. Limestones are developed at the bottom of oceans. Sedimentary rocks don't form volcanoes.
Siberia is not known for its tectonic activity, so that makes a volcanic eruption even less likely. Volcanoes occur most frequently at the boundaries of tectonic plates, where the plates are actively moving towards or away from each other, which isn't happening here. So could it be a different kind of explosion? Archaeologist Dr. Ed Barnhart says that scientists have detected radiation in the area, leading to theories about possible undercover military operations.
When they really started studying it, it was the Cold War. So Americans were very worried that maybe this was another Russian test site. The trees around the crater are growing up taller and had higher levels of uranium and thorium. Radiation does make certain plant life grow bigger and stronger. So now we have some hint that there is radiation coming out of here. But a bomb creates a completely different kind of crater than we see here. This crater is compact and it's high. So it's coming up from the ground. It's not an explosion that's sent things out to the outside.
Since it doesn't seem like a nuclear testing site, Barnhart analyzes if it could have something to do with an increase in magnetism.
There's a high level of magnetic activity in and around this crater. Normally, magnetic activity has to be about iron that gets superheated. This is limestone, so the signature further confuses the pattern geologically.
Those increased levels of radiation and magnetism seem surprising and inexplicable, but Barnhart thinks he might have an answer, a buildup of heat from those radioactive elements.
What we're seeing here likely is the thorium and uranium that they detected in the trees decaying under the earth, making an exothermic reaction, exploding up into this crater.
And Barnhart says that heat could also explain the magnetism.
We do know that iron is found in Siberia, and it doesn't take a huge quantity of iron to become magnetic. The exothermic reaction is the same heat that took the surrounding iron and turned it magnetic.
Anderson believes this exothermic reaction might have caused what's known as a mud volcano, which differs from the traditional magma volcano that we've already ruled out. These natural formations are created by the eruption of hot water, pressurized gases, and mud as opposed to lava.
There have been several mud volcanoes identified in Greenland where you find the sediments on top and they come up. I've not heard of one being dominated by limestone, but it's not impossible.
One problem, though. This theory doesn't explain why this site instills such fear in the locals, or why the expedition leader suffered a heart attack. So the true picture remains muddy, for now. Our verdict: this is an unexplained geological anomaly that still has us all stumped. It's possible it was caused by a mud volcano, but that doesn't explain why the formation is made out of limestone. Luckily, we feel like we're in good company if the greatest minds on Earth are also at a loss. It's July 2016 in Mineral County, West Virginia. A nature photographer is taking pictures around Jennings-Randolph Lake when she sees something mysterious and snaps a shot. Her photo shows a rock formation with an almost honeycomb appearance on its face, like a stone beehive. The pattern is geometrical, with straight rows of triangles and rhombuses, which make it look somewhat like a waffle. It's darker in color than the rock face and appears in relief, which makes it stand out. And journalist Eric Grundhauser confirms that it often draws curious visitors.
What makes it so evocative is the way that the shapes here and the design on the rock are so seemingly uniform. When we see natural formations, we often think of them as a little bit more random, a little bit more chaotic. But the design on Waffle Rock seems to be a bit more ordered. It seems to have a reason to it.
So it looks like the rock isn't random, and Grundhauser wonders if it's trying to tell us something.
One theory is that it is a design created by an ancient culture that was trying to leave some sort of message or hieroglyphic and left it in this indecipherable code.
If that were the case, it would have been chiseled into the rock. We know that ancient Native Americans in what is now western North Carolina etched this curvilinear motif into a soapstone boulder known as Judah-Kula Rock more than 2,000 years ago. It is considered a mystical site to many Cherokee, but there's an even more ancient possibility.
Another theory is that this is actually the fossilized imprint of the skin of some kind of giant lizard left behind in the stone.
Specifically, some have speculated that it's the fossilized or even mummified remains of a dinosaur. Sound far-fetched? Well, look at this. This is the perfectly preserved mummy of a Nodosaurus dinosaur found by miners in Alberta, Canada in 2011. It got this way because it sank into the muck shortly after it died, preserving its skin and armor. Yet Grundhauser has one more idea about the rock's origin.
Still another theory posits that it was created by extraterrestrials, either created intentionally as some kind of map for other extraterrestrials or to mark their passing.
So, could this be the work of intelligent alien design? Though the Waffle Rock Formation is not at all common. Similar patterned stones have been found in Monongahela, Pennsylvania, and at Tea Creek Mountain in West Virginia. Still, this one in Mineral County is by far the largest. So what are these bizarre boulders and where do they come from? Let's turn to the experts. Anthropologist Kathy Strain considers if this could be an ancient artwork.
I'm not seeing anything typical of what you would see with Native American rock art. It's not a typical design. It doesn't have any kind of structure that a Native American would want to convey.
Perhaps then this is ancient writing, maybe even from a lost language? Archaeologist Dr. Ed Barnhart is an epigrapher who translates cuneiform hieroglyphics in unknown ancient scripts. He gives the strange pattern a look.
This waffle rock doesn't follow any of the rules of making something that's communicating a message in stone. The reader and the writer have to agree on a set amount of symbols, or it doesn't work as a code. When you look at waffle rock, there is no pattern. It is very complex and very geometric. There's lots of lines, but there's no repeated or different symbols.
If we can rule out man-made origins, what about the idea that this is fossilized skin or scales from an ancient creature like a dinosaur?
A fossil is simply the calcium in bone being replaced with rock through millions of years of being covered with mud. When I look at it, I don't see any fossilization at all. There's nothing there that would indicate calcium, like a bone structure, or any organics at all.
We turn next to geologist Bob Anderson. Perhaps earth science might offer some guidance here. Could this be some sort of natural geological formation?
You'll see that there are multiple what we call joint patterns here. And what happens is that these are fluids that are running through this rock. Either iron fluids or water fluids, even magma, was running through these cracks in the rocks, and it hardened and eroded away at a different pace. And so you see what's called a waffle pattern. And this is natural. We see it in all kinds of crystals.
Anderson says the movement of tectonic plates caused cracks in the sandstone that likely filled with iron oxide, mixed with sand, and formed a hard cement-like material resistant to weathering compared to the surrounding stone. As the surrounding rock gradually eroded, it left behind the iron oxide pattern. Our verdict? This is a natural phenomenon, likely caused by iron oxide flowing into a crack in the rock and hardening into this pattern. Scientists who have studied the rock say the pattern formed hundreds of millions of years ago, so it had to have resulted from geological processes. The fact that it's made by nature makes the waffle rock even more intriguing, and one of the most visually interesting rock formations we've ever seen. It's July 2020, outside Butte, Montana. Photographer Nicholas Warner has traveled to Dry Mountain to witness one of the strangest natural wonders in Big Sky country. His drone footage shows a massive pile of rust-colored boulders that seem oddly out of place in contrast with the drab gray of the rocks lying nearby. And when struck lightly with a hammer, each boulder produces a bell-like tone.
Some rocks, depending on where you hit them, they come up with a different sound. I'm still kind of baffled by how it was able to make such a loud, distinct ringing sound. For whatever reason, this specific pile of rocks has some sort of strange quality to it.
What's especially strange is that when rocks have been removed from this site, they no longer ring. Nicholas says the whole area has a kind of creepy feeling to it.
It was that feeling where someone is watching you. It felt very uncanny. I would say that there's definitely some sort of mystical quality to the area.
The Bell Rocks of Montana aren't the only ancient stones to produce this unique brand of rock music. Many civilizations believe these areas where rocks ring like they are hollow were special places of great mystical and spiritual significance. Ringing rocks and gongs of various types and with differing sounds are found around the world at sites in the US, Mexico, Europe, Africa, India, and Australia. But where did these massive, seemingly out-of-place stones come from? Author Jason Martell says some think sound helped build the Egyptian pyramids and maybe move these rocks as well.
Around the world, there's theories that using vibrational sound can actually levitate large stones. I think that perhaps they were moved here using some type of a sound frequency.
Experiments have proven it's possible to levitate objects by using high-frequency sound waves to create a standing wave that acts as a force to counteract gravity. But can it work for something as big as boulders? There may be several sites around the world known for their ringing rocks, but there has been less investigation into the special property of these stones than you would expect. especially considering that humans have used them as musical and ritualistic instruments since before written history. So what's going on here? Our experts leave no stone unturned. We take the footage to our forensic audio analyst, Dr. Rob Maher, and deduce if the rocks were put here intentionally. First, he compares them to church bells.
The ringing rock have this characteristic here, which is loud and then it dies out as the ring goes away. And for the church bells here, we can see the same characteristic of the sound. We can see the start of that and then the decay. So the two sounds are distinctive. Our ear can tell the difference, but they share many of the same kind of characteristics.
So maybe these rocks were placed here on purpose to designate a spot as sacred as a church? But while the bell rocks share similar properties with the church bell, Maher says they don't show signs of being intentionally arranged.
The orchestral chimes will ring for a much longer period of time. They're designed very specifically to give that sustained sort of quality so that they will have a longer duration of vibration and give us a different sound quality than the random collection of minerals in that rock.
So if nobody put these ringing rocks here, where'd they come from? And why do they ring? NASA geologist Dr. Bob Anderson weighs in.
It looks like a pile of rocks that somebody might have dropped off. It's not. What it is, it's an old, what we call a plug or a batholith from a volcano that has been exposed and is breaking apart into all these pieces because of weathering.
A batholith is a large mass of intrusive igneous rock which forms from magma that's cooled after rising into the Earth's crust. Perhaps the most famous batholith is Half Dome in Yosemite National Park. Anderson says the secret behind the ringing is most likely a combination of the mineral composition of the rocks and the way joining patterns have developed as the rocks have eroded. That's why they only ring here. The resonance depends on how they are connected.
Most of these rocks are basalts, and basalts are igneous rocks that come up from the underground. What happens over the years, the rocks are breaking apart. Each of those rocks, as long as they're in connection, has that resonant standing wave that'll ring as a unit. But when you start seeing all these little pieces, now you're making up the orchestra. And so all the little pieces have a different pitch and different tone as they break apart and weather away.
Our verdict, this is a natural geological phenomenon. But we still can't explain why people feel a mystical presence around the ringing rocks. If you make the trip out there, maybe you'll feel it too. Just make sure you leave the rocks as you find them. It's October 2021 near the Taima Oasis in northwest Saudi Arabia. Photographer Satish Javili is trekking through the remote desert area to document a magnificent sight. His shots show a monumental rock formation in the shape of a rounded rectangle. It appears to be a monadnock, which is an isolated mass of stone. The 18 by 27-foot ochre-colored slab is covered in prehistoric petroglyphs of horses, camels, and hunters, shown in stark relief and detail. But these 4,000-year-old drawings are not the most notable feature of this formation. That honor is reserved for a perfectly precise crevice that divides the rock in two. The crack is so straight and exact that it seems impossible it could be natural or even man-made without the most advanced precision tools. What's even more remarkable is that each half is balanced precariously on a pedestal, yet the formation remains standing after millennia. Satish says he's never seen anything quite like it.
It is simply mind-blowing, the way the rock has been split. The archaeological specialists have gone there, but nobody has come out with the right answer.
The large, solid boulder looks as though it was split in half with the aid of a precision laser. It's hard to believe this perfect crack down the middle could have been accidental. So there are a couple of things I want to show you with the Al Nazla rock. First of all, this pedestal right here. This pedestal right here. Built for monuments to rest on, right? Take a look at the line down the center. How does this happen? If you had a stone saw, could you cut the stone that perfectly? Again, there are petroglyphs all through this rock. This rock was created hundreds of thousands of years ago, and it has certainly spawned wild and amazing stories. Journalist Eric Grunhauser says one theory is that the people who drew the glyphs 4,000 years ago also split the rock. But did they have advanced enough technology at that time?
The ancient cultures of the area were working with much more rudimentary tools than one would expect to be able to create something with such precision. It's almost as if someone would have had a laser or some sort of highly precision saw to create this sort of break.
There was a nomadic people roaming the Arabian desert a few centuries later who were known for their engineering skill.
It could have been created possibly by the Nabatean people, same culture that created the Petra site in Jordan, whose knowledge and expertise would have possibly been advanced enough to create something with such precision as we see in the Al Nazla Formation.
But even the Nabateans didn't have access to high-tech tools like laser cutters and circular saws. So the exactness of the cut has led some to speculate it could have been made by advanced ancient visitors from another planet.
Is it possible that the Al Nazla Formation was created by extraterrestrials? Was it left as a gift, not unlike the monolith from 2001, A Space Odyssey, to push humanity forward, to inspire us?
As early as the 5th century BC, the Nabateans began carving elaborate multi-story building facades into the red sandstone cliff faces of Petra. But that site is in Jordan, 450 miles away from the Al Nazla rock, and it involves more complex carvings than a single straight line through one rock in the middle of nowhere. So that might be a stretch. Let's see what our experts can dig up. Physicist Matthew Shadagis investigates to see if the rock in Al Nazla could actually have been made by man or aliens.
So I've taken an image of the Al Nazla rock, and I've actually drawn two perfectly straight lines from my computer. And what you can see in several locations is that actually the rock pokes past the straight lines. So this gap is actually not perfectly straight. Humans could create cuts in rocks, and nearby civilizations here are known to have done that. No need for ancient aliens.
Since the line isn't actually as perfectly straight as it looks at first, perhaps it was made by people from the region. Archaeologist Dr. Ed Barnhart says nearby ancient civilizations like the Egyptians had special techniques for cutting into rock without high-tech tools.
The typical way that Egyptians would split a stone like this would be to get up on the top of it and peck holes into it in a line. Then, as they pecked the holes deep, they'd then put wooden stakes inside each one of the holes.
So the Egyptians would put the stakes in a straight line like the one seen at Al Nazla.
And then they would water those stakes like you water a plant. When the wood expanded together as a line of stakes, they would pull the rock apart, and that split will travel through the whole stone and split it.
But geologist Dr. Bob Anderson says there aren't any telltale signs of this construction technique that you would expect to see on the top or sides of the rock if the crack was man-made.
There's no chip marks, there's no pieces. You don't even see fragments on the ground around it that would say that if you were chipping and breaking.
So could this crack be caused by a natural disaster like an earthquake?
I realized that this monadnock, or this isolated rock here, is not isolated. There's almost a trail of boulders going back. They're all cracked at the exact location. You can see that the crack is a result of regional tectonic features.
So Anderson believes the rock may sit on a fault line, and it's likely an earthquake or shifting tectonic plates created the crack not just in this boulder, but in other rocks along the same fault line. Or it could also be that the crack is a joint, which in geological terms means when a rock breaks naturally without displacement. It's rare, but sometimes the fracture can divide the rock in an unusually straight line. Another possibility is that freeze-thaw weathering may have caused the crack. But no matter how it was split in two, Anderson thinks erosion may have played a part in its near-perfect appearance.
The reason it looks so clearly cut is because it's been willowed out by the wind. It's being almost like sandblasted and polished, which has opened up that crack more.
The ground around and under the boulder eroded so much that eventually it was left just resting on these two natural pedestals. Someday the forces of gravity will likely cause it to collapse. The Al Nazla rock has baffled scientists for centuries, but we think we finally found the true answer. Our verdict? Tectonic activity created a crack thousands or even millions of years ago. It was later perfected with erosion, which also made those pedestals the rock now rests on.